So, welcome to Grown Local, Sell Local, tonight with myself, Kathleen Gunn, and my colleague, Kat McGregor. She's up in their top corner under Farm Advisory Service. So tonight's meeting is really, you've grown the produce or raised the animal, and now how are you going to get that product, sell that product to the end consumer? And you're, in this case, selling direct to the customer. Tonight's meeting, please feel free to ask questions. There's two ways to do that. You can either raise your hand, and you'll see that down the bottom of your screen, or you can enter into the chat function. If you direct questions, you can direct them to everybody on the call, or you can direct them to myself or Kat under the Farm Advisory Service. So tonight, we'll just a brief introduction of who our speakers. A colleague, Callum Johnston, he's with the Food and Drink team at SEC Consulting. And then we've got Stuart Retson from JSR Services, or Vending by JSR, and he's going to talk about vending machines and how, the use of them in selling to the public. And then we've got Juliana from the Highland Council, who's a food safety officer, and she's going to tell us more about the rules around selling produce to the end consumer. So without further ado, we'll just hand you over to Callum. I'll ask Callum to come off mute, and Callum will just take us through ways of selling direct to the public. Callum.
All right, thanks very much. And good evening, everyone. I'm just going to see if I can't seem to share my screen, Kat. I'm not sure if that's a function or what. It's just got here. I can't seem to share, so I can't bring up any slides for some reason.
If you try now, Callum, I've changed the settings for you.
Okay. Okay, let me know if you can see this.
Yep, just coming up, Callum. Yep, we're good. Just loading.
You got it now?
Got it. Yep, good.
Perfect. Cool. Okay. Well, good evening, everyone. My name is Callum Johnston. I work in the Food and Drink team, or what's now called the Food and Enterprise team at SEC Consulting. So my work involves supporting small to medium-sized food and drink producers, farmers, and crofters all over Scotland, specifically in farm diversification and agri-tourism. I am, I am from a farming background. My family run a small farm just in the outskirts of Perth, which we overlook the River Tay, which is a beautiful part of the world. I'm going to keep my presentation quite short because we've got two speakers after me. But what I'm going to do is just introduce the concept of selling direct, and also just introduce farm vending and why it's important. I'll see if I can move on. My computer's being slow.
Callum, are you able to put your slides on a slideshow?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, just so we can see the slides coming.
Oh, that's not great.
It's just a bit slow, I think.
Can you see it now, Kat?
Yeah, I can see it, but we can also see your next slide as well. Do you want to click from the beginning, Callum, on the slideshow?
Yeah. Oh, the joys of Zoom.
Great technology. That's it. It's okay, Callum. Do you know what? I know you don't have a lot of slides. We'll just go with what you've got. It's not a problem.
Yeah, in the interest of time.
Sure. We'll just crack on.
Yeah. So, I'm just going to introduce the whole concept and really where we've come to date. So, through the pandemic, we've all seen a number of new trends which have come to the forefront of our everyday lives. And one of the main consumer trends has been real growth in demand for local food and drink. Consumers want to source locally, and they also want to build relationships with local people and local businesses. And consumers are generally willing to pay a premium price for fresh farm produce. Now, the pandemic has highlighted, I guess, just how fragile our food system can be when importing produce from overseas. And in turn, has also raised the profile or raised concerns over the environmental impact of our food system. You know, the air miles, the road miles, and carbon emissions from importing food from overseas. Now, admittedly, we can't grow everything here in Scotland, you know, specifically exotic fruits or exotic veg. But what we can do is we can support local producers and buy meat, veg, milk, and eggs, among other produce from local farmers, crofters, and smallholders. Developing a brand for your own farm produce is a great way to add value to your outputs. Provenance is a really important factor for many consumers now, and demand for local, traceable food and drink with strong provenance has really accelerated during the pandemic. In the absence of a farm brand, so if you're a farmer or a crofter and you're selling your lamb or your beef or your milk, you know, you load it onto the float, or you put it in the milk tanker, and it leaves the farm, and that whole farming story, everything about you and your family and your history and background, your values, that's all lost. And that's why it's important. A lot of farms now are looking to add value and create their own farm brand so they can communicate their brand story right through to the end consumer. Because consumers like to form relationships with farmers and crofters. They also like to form relationships with local people and people within their communities. And I know that I personally feel much more connected with those in my community. And there's also like a sense of giving back. There's a sense of supporting local businesses and local people, which, you know, gives you a bit of a feel-good factor as well. And due to lockdown, and we've seen a major shift to home working, consumers are now doing a lot more cooking and baking at home. You know, a lot of us have got a little bit more time in our hands, and also TV programs like MasterChef and the Great British Bake Off, if you watch that, you know, they're inspiring people, and people want to get creative in the kitchen. So there's now a lot more cooking from scratch over ready meals. People are not out traveling for work as much as they used to. So there is real, I guess, more appetite, excuse the pun, but there's appetite for local produce. And this can only be a good thing. You know, it's good for our health, it's good for our diet, it's good for the environment. And it's also nice because it's strengthening and building family relationships, and also spending some more time with your children, if you've got children. And for these reasons, consumers are now, you know, much more inclined than they perhaps used to be to buy fresh ingredients over heavily processed foods. So bringing it back to farm vending, well, farm vending is a great way to sell fresh farm produce directly to consumers without the overheads involved in running a traditional farm shop. And as a consumer, there's a real novelty. There's just something about driving to a farm to buy your milk, buy your eggs, meat or veg. There's just something about it that's really cool and fun. And seeing the produce growing in the fields or livestock grazing, you know, in grass in the fields. There's just something nice about it. And as a farmer, it's also a great way to not only add value to your produce, promote your own business, promote your own brand, your own farming story, but it also allows you a chance to engage with the public and engage directly with end consumers. That's enough from me. As I say, I'm going to keep it short. Next week, I am going to go into a bit more detail on marketing and social media. So please do remember that this is a two-parter. At the end of tonight, I'm sure Kathleen and Kat will give you the link, but please do join us next week for a bit more from me. Thank you. And I think I'll hand over Stuart. Stuart next.
Thank you, Callum. Yeah, what am I going to chat about after that introduction? Because you've kind of covered why people should be looking at vending machines for selling their own produce. So that will save me at least 5 minutes. Callum, thank you very much. If I look for my slides on here, share this with you guys, and I go up here, they should work fine.
Yep.
Is that okay?
Perfect,
Right.
Stuart. Yep.
I'm not really going to tell you why you need vending machines. I was going to more just introduce you to how it all started for farm vending in the UK. The vending concept, vending machines in general, have been about for 200 years. The concept of bottles of juice, snacks has been in the UK, but not really selling fresh food produce. Switzerland, Italy, Holland, Germany, they've been at it for a while, 15, 20 years. And the original idea to bring something like this to the UK really did start from this man, Johnny Crickmore. He saw someone dispensing milk in Switzerland from a machine. And he decided, you know, I've got a big dairy. At that time, the milk was going through a bit of a bad game. They were getting 18, 20p from their contract guys. And, you know, they reckoned they could be selling their milk, raw milk even in England and Ireland, for £1 a litre. So he says, I was really needing a bit of that to try and boost my profitability for my dairy. He'd looked at doing cheeses and stuff, but thought this was a great way just to start making more revenue. And like Callum was saying, just get the story out there about how hard farmers actually work 7 days a week, all the hours, to produce food, because people didn't know the story. So he did that, and he started off with a basic, that's not a very good picture actually, Brunimart milk bot. It was a Swiss machine. He brought it across, could only take coins, could only take pound coins, in fact, so nothing too fancy. Had a bit of trouble with him. A lot of his neighbours loved the idea. They were buying machines from him. But he thought he really needed to get something a bit more reliable, and that's when he sourced the machine on the right-hand side there. That's a DF Italia machine from northern Italy. Could take notes and coins, could do different litre sizes, dispense different amounts if you wanted it. Bigger tanks, so you could store more milk in the machine at one time, and it cleaned itself. It was its own cleaning thing, so it was a bit better for the environmental side of things. So when Johnny brought this across, this really took off with the milk guys. As I said, they were really struggling to make profit, just being contract milk producers. So this really was a necessity for them more than something that they wanted to do, with all the added benefits of brands and telling their story, as Callum suggested. So that was about 2013, 2014. And around about the same time, that's my father, John Retson. He was chairman of the British Free Range Egg Producers Association. We have 64, at that time, we had 64,000 layers in the centre of Scotland, and we reared pullets as well, organic pullets for Scotland and the North England. And we had a small organic farm in Fowlis, a small village just outside Dundee. And a lot of the locals were always knocking on the farm door, the shed door, saying, can we buy eggs? Can we buy eggs? And because we're a contract producer and for biosecurity reasons, the farm manager kept telling them, no, go away, you know, you can't come in here, kind of thing. But we really felt we should sell some eggs back to these guys. We truck feed lorries to the middle of the village at umpteen hours in the morning and things. So we wanted to do something. So Dad had heard about an egg vending machine from someone at one of his Profepa meetings. They'd been to Holland, I think it was, and they saw this machine with boxes of eggs in it. So Dad says, you know, that's what we need for Fowlis. And I was like, Dad, there's no such thing as an egg vending machine. You know, just don't be daft. He says, well, there must be. Someone's seen one. So you go home, you Google it. And sure enough, I found these things, stainless steel, banks of lockers. They were selling asparagus, the ones I found, but same concept, made in Hamburg in northern Germany. So to cut a long story short, we went back, we spoke to them. Their salesman was actually going to Manchester for holiday for some reason. So I kind of met him down there. We talked about them, phoned Dad, he says, oh, we'll have one. So we ordered one. And as I was telling other people our story, and so was Dad, a couple of forward-thinking young farmers, John Gordon, Highland Feather Fresh up in Tain, another guy, Jonathan Tombstone, down Anslow Eggs in Derbyshire. They were very quick on the uptake, thinking, this is a great idea. We'll have one of them. So we ordered those as well. They were actually the first two that came into the UK. They had theirs before we took ours. And yeah, that's how it all kind of started. We were doing a bit of solar panels and that at the time as well. So the German company Rossler that made these things had a look at us as well and called me out of the blue one day and said, would you like to sell some of these in the UK? So me being me, I thought, if I sell another 3, that pays for mine. And that was kind of what the whole thing started. So yeah, that's how it was going to be. So I went across to Germany just to see what these things were all about. That was a chilled unit that we saw at a show. So they showed me around there, showed me everything else that was going on in Holland and Germany with these machines. And people were selling anything from fresh meat, asparagus, soft fruit, eggs. They were doing it all. So I kind of came back on a flight from Amsterdam with my head full of, we might be onto something here. So we thought, right, bit of a crack at it. So we basically took things easy to start with. We made a very basic web page, did a couple of flyers, and we really just spoke to egg producers, vegetable producers, people that we knew and people that knew us. Because at that time, I didn't know how reliable these machines were. I didn't know how quickly Germany could build them. So we didn't want to bite off more we can chew. And really, we built up quite a good reputation in the poultry industry, and we didn't want to risk that either. So that's basically kind of how we started. We did a couple of shows, Pig and Poultry Show, Farm Innovation Show, and it all just kind of took off from there. Egg machines were super popular. Soft fruit, they were quick on the uptake for soft fruit as well with the chilled machines. Potatoes, with a few potato producers jump on quite early as well. But yeah, so 4 years, we just worked away with the Rossler machines. Did really well, machines from the north of Scotland right down to the south of England. That was the biggest hassle, going around installing all these machines. So I was kind of more or less full-time on the vending thing by this point, rather than being at home helping with the farming enterprise. Why were egg machines so important? I've stuck this slide in because at the time, we were going through a similar thing to the milk guys. Bit oversupply of eggs. Supermarkets were dictating the price. So 2017, 2018, you were getting about 95p a dozen from your packer at the time. Okay, that's an average for your Class A's. If you had off-coloured shells, smaller eggs, rippled shells, they were what they called seconds or Class B eggs. Now, you were lucky if you were getting 20p. Some people were not getting paid for seconds at all. So we found that if we took our seconds and put them in the vending machine, told the story to the customer, these are off-coloured shells, kind of wonky veg story. Supermarkets don't want them, quality product, and sold them. We were getting an average 120 a dozen for our seconds. So we were getting more money for our seconds than we were for our Class A eggs. Just a quick figure, a poultry unit should run around about 2% seconds on average. So if you've got 12,000 hens, you've got 20 dozen a day. At £1.20, the first year from seconds alone, you would have had nearly £7,000 income that you would never have had. Now that's cash back then as well, because there wasn't a lot of contactless going about, and a lot of the farmers liked the idea of getting some cash. So yeah, you had £7,000 the first year, and that was probably the most popular egg configuration. 16 small lockers, 12 bigger ones, so you could get half dozens or dozen and pre-packs in your smaller lockers, and then your trays were there as well. We've got single trays there, but you could get 2 or 3 trays in each locker if you wanted to offer that to your customer. And we were retailing that delivered and set up to the customer for 7,000. So 12-month payback, and that was just off your seconds. If you had Class A's or other products in there, that was extra revenue. So that's why they kind of became popular. And like the milk machines, they were kind of necessity to a farmer. If you had a decent sized egg production business, you had to do something with these seconds. And this was an ideal way to do it. And again, like Callum says, tell your story. People loved that. People really bought into that, or they did in our area. So through time, people were seeing how popular they were with their customers. Customers started asking for more products. So people started going to neighbours, say, could we get your potatoes to put beside our eggs, vice versa. And the machines kind of started becoming, instead of single item machines, you know, like little shops, had multiple products in them. Customers were coming up and buying 2, 3, 4 lockers at a visit. So people started asking us, you know, our customers started saying, is there any way I can get sales data from these machines? Is there any way, you know, I can be on the tractor and see if this machine's running out of stock? Germany, I went back and forth with them saying, can we do this? Can we do that? And Germans are very, well, German, you know, they build quality, but they build what they want to build. The research and development wasn't really that great. So they were kind of saying, no, Stuart, just you're doing well with what you're doing, just keep doing that. Again, it didn't really sit with me. So I went on the hunt for a kind of system that could maybe do what we wanted it to do. So through another contact I'd made in Holland, I'd landed a conversation with a company called Innovend. Now, when I spoke to Innovend, they were saying, yep, no, we've just devised a machine. We're not quite there yet, but it's nearly ready to go. It's fully modulated, so you could buy small bank of lockers to start with, then grow them as your produce grew or as your sales grew. It's a touch screen for a customer buying experience. It's software-based, so you get full remote monitoring and sales data. And, you know, you can access it from any handheld device or computer or anything you can connect to the internet with. So sounded fantastic. Back on a plane to Holland. And when I went to meet Innovend, I was quite surprised. They weren't just thinking about what I was, but with a bit more remote monitoring. They were really looking at building whole shops with lockers. They were kind of 2, 3, 4 years ahead of us thinking, no, people, you know, it's convenience. Even standing at a self-service checkout now isn't convenient. You know, they want to be able to fly in with their cars, shop as quick as possible, back out again and away. So this was a prototype they'd done. It was the first store they built in Den Bosch. So when I went to see that again, it was an eye-opening thing. Their touchscreen was amazing. Rather than just choosing a locker number, you know, the customer in our machines would walk through, look through all the locker windows, pick what products they would like, go back, touch in the locker numbers. These guys took pictures of products, put them on the touchscreen. You could scroll to the screen. You were just touching the product. It was stacking it up in a basket, just like buying on Amazon. And people were checking out multiple items at a time. Fantastic. The vending web platform, fully remote monitoring. You can control how products are positioned on the screen, all the details of the products are on the screen, consumer device, sales data, yep, it was all there, all transferable to Excel, just at a push of a button and stored for the whole length of the life of the machine. So, yep, a lot more than I thought I was getting for. So, yeah, that's why we signed up with them to go forward. We still were always going to do the Roastler machines. We had about 60 or 70 of these out there already. We had to service them for customers. All that extra technology is a bit more price. So I thought, okay, there might be people that still need just an egg machine or just a potato machine. And the Roastler machines do a great job at that. But there's also this other level of client that was looking for the more retail experience. So why use vending machines? Callum kind of touched on all the kind of reasons as well, but building a brand, there's a lot less legislation than setting up a farm shop. Staff, wages, I mean, what you'll pay a staff member in a year, you know, is what, twice what you pay by for a vending machine sometimes. And you don't need to give a vending machine holidays, and they don't have hangovers on Sundays either. So, and then you're 365 days a year, 24 hours, opening hours is a big thing. Why do customers like buying from vending machines? Callum kind of touched on a few things, but it's convenience. When we speak to people, it's all about convenience. Young mothers can rock up to the machine, park the car, don't need to take the kids out. They can quickly vend, back in the car and away. Less food miles and packaging, better environment. I think you mentioned that as well. Buying local, people, yeah, especially after the COVID stuff, definitely want to be supporting their local businesses and love buying freshness. Everybody talks about how good your food tastes, or your egg tastes, or your vegetable tastes, because they buy it direct from the farmer. It's not that much different growing practice from what they get in the supermarket. It's just a week fresher, and that's where the flavours and everything come from. And I think a lot more people are realising that now. And a lot of the time, they will pay more money for convenience, but a lot of the time, it's better value in the supermarkets as well. I know our eggs are cheaper than what's in the supermarket, and that's us making a decent margin at them as well. So people who kind of jump on it quite early, especially for the lock block side of things, this is Morton's Milk down in Ayrshire. David and Gillian Morton and their family, they've got 300 dairy cows. They started with a milk machine, but very quickly saw that there was room and their customers were needing are asking for more produce. They want to do breakfast packs and some cheeses and stuff, yogurts, things like that. And they started with a 52 locker machine, and within 8 months grew it to 124 lockers just through demand and what customers were asking for. Now their shop outlet with their milk machine and their locker machine is actually doing far better than the rest of the farm. Davey actually says to me sometimes it's quite embarrassing that he's out there 7 days a week, and this little machine can actually bring in more than he does. And I think his wife reminds him of that time and time again as well. Up in the north of Scotland, we've got Johnny Martin's farm, Lake Augustin, Muirford. They had a pretty successful honesty system. They sold quite a lot of potatoes, a lot of veg that they bought in, carrots, broccoli, that type of thing. At the side of the road, they had the spud bus and everything as well. Problem with honesty boxes is they're not very honest anymore. He had 3 break-ins in the space of about 8 months, and he'd hummed and hawed and spoke to me about a machine for a long, long time before he finally decided to do so. When he did, he had to have as many lockers as would satisfy what he thought his sales would be on a weekly basis. So he went in with quite a big unit to begin with, 176 lockers. He had a building next to where the honesty box used to be that he was wanting to convert, so that went in there. And a big surprise to him was his sales actually increased. He would have been quite happy if it stayed the same and there was no theft or no hassle. But his sales increased quite a bit. And when he kind of did a deep dive into why, customers were saying, well, we didn't really come here much because we were scared that people had handled all the food before we got there. They'd been raking through the veg or raking through the potatoes. A lot of the time, if they were there later in the day, the best stuff was gone and it was all just other stuff that was there. Now the vending machines there, people are saying we can get a far better selection of stuff. So yeah, he was very happy with the way his is going. Johnny as well, his is only open 8 months a year. He's a great believer in only selling potatoes and veg when he's growing them. He doesn't store a lot and sell it through other periods of the year. So even only opening 8 months a year, his machine still does very well. Thornybank Farm Shop. These guys have become a bit of a poster boys of locker vending for the UK, actually. They do social media very well. Penny, his sister, Neil's sister, was quite hot on that type of thing. So they started off doing their own veg. Again, had a little honesty system, even from when his grandfather had the small farm that they have at Rocky Norman. They had a little wheelbarrow at the side of the road, and people came in and bought a few bits and bobs. And when Neil took the farm over, he expanded that a little bit. But again, honesty systems weren't very honest. So he decided to look at lockers. That was just at the time I was starting to do lock blocks. So he actually had the first lock blocks machine, the touchscreen version. He had the first one of those in the UK. But you'll see by the cladding around the machine in the shop, he put it and he presented it very well. And Penny then, yeah, she did very well with the stock she brought in, advertising what they were doing. They put a lot of home baking straight in the machine. His mother had a registered kitchen and was quite a baker. And that, Neil used to say, was his license to print money. Anybody that came in for eggs or veg always went away with a cake. Now, when you're selling 4 bits of shortbread for £2, we all know how much it costs to make shortbread. So that was always his wee license to print money, he said. So that's just some people in Scotland. There's a lot of smaller machines out there as well. If anybody wants any information or contact details of any of the people that are using machines, please just let me know. I'm a big advocate of letting customers or potential customers speak to existing customers. I say that all the time when I sell a machine. Would it be okay if people came by to see it? So yeah, no problem at all. The big question I think everybody's sitting wondering is, what does it cost to get into farm vending? So we'll speak about both styles of machines because, as I said, one's a bit more technically advanced than the other. The roaster machine, if you're looking for a farm gate, chilled, non-chilled, we can do both of them. We can do contactless on these machines as well, no bother at all. So it's not just a basic coin or note machine anymore. Customer comes up, looks over the machine, chooses a locker number, types the number in the door. Locker bounces open. If the customer wants a second locker, they go through the process again. That machine, the egg machine that used to be £7,000 with steel prices increasing, today's at 9,495, and that's with contactless and everything on it. The lock blocks, we're trying to do one just very similar configuration with all the lights, with all the software-based systems and all the backup touchscreens, that type of thing. A more retail experience for the customer. That one's 13,495. These prices are delivered anywhere in the UK, and one of ourselves, one of the Vending by GSR team, come and setting it up and doing full training with people on their site. Average takings, we kind of had a quick phone round on Monday afternoon. Stephen sat in the office and phoned a few customers that we knew well, asked a few questions, and yeah, they're also machines. People reckon they'll probably sell on average 80% of the lockers a day. Depends, no matter what size the machine was. That's kind of where it came back, 70 to 80%. Sometimes less on a Monday, Tuesday. They would have to fill the machine maybe twice on a Saturday or a Sunday. So average was 80%. With £1 profit per locker on the vegetables or eggs, payback was under 12 months, regardless of the size of the machine. Everyone we spoke to said, oh no, our machine paid for itself in 12 months for sure. The lock blocks, it's a kind of, most people with lock boxes are multi products. So we took a machine, we said the average was about 60 lockers and people we spoke to. The average weekly takings were about £1,800. Average margin, because a lot of these machines, because they're multiple produce, they're buying produce in. They would have a main product that was their own, say eggs, big margin on that, and they were buying other stuff in. So average margin is about 45%. So the average payback was 10 months on those machines. So again, return on investment, especially in farmer circles, not too bad at all. Yeah, there's now over 500 milk machines in the UK. So a lot of people have taken on this concept in the last 6 or 7 years, and that's growing all the time. The guys at the milk station are telling me, you know, they're just inundated. The other company, the UK company that build machines in the UK, Use Vending, they're called. They do milkshake machines now. So you can actually have a syrup dispenser bolted into your milk machine so the customer can come up and buy a super fresh, ready-made milkshake. They are looking at a 20-week delivery time. They're so busy on the milk machines at the moment. So the milk guys are really still pressing ahead with this. We've done, as it stands today, just over 150 locker machines in the UK. I'm actually down in Nottingham doing another quite a big install, a farm shop install tonight. We've got quite a good order book at the moment as well. So yeah, that just shows how popular these things are getting and how momentum's gathering. That's a soft root machine that sits just actually on the East Coast. What's next for us? We are seeing a lot of inquiries for people looking for multiple units, all linked off the same payment terminal. So somebody wants chilled, they want ambient, they want frozen. You'll see pusher machines in these pictures here. That's for stacking produce. It's maybe got a longer shelf life in it. We can link all these to our software. So we've got the vending web stuff there, and all on the touchscreen as well. We're seeing campsites, glamping sites, a lot of interest this year from those, and frozen. There's a couple of frozen machines available out there, Chinese machines, not the best. They have hotspots in them, or they overfreeze or underfreeze. We have developed a frozen unit in Holland with lockers. And we've also developed a frozen unit with one of these intelligent fridges. This is state-of-the-art stuff. We've just kind of brought this to the market in the last month. The prototype frozen is ready. It's going into the field just in the next few weeks. We're going to do a field trial on it to make sure everything's okay. The fridge one's here now. The way this works is you pre-authorize your card up against a payment terminal, or if you have our app, your customers can register for our app, and they just touch their phone to the screen on the QR code there, and it unlocks the fridge or the freezer. Now, when they open the door, they can take whatever they like. When they shut the door, they will be charged for what they have removed from the fridge or the freezer. There's a lot of other benefits for you as the owner of the fridge freezer when it comes to stocking and all that kind of thing. And I mean, it's super easy for the customer. Tap the card, open the fridge. They can pick products up, look at them, put them back. Whatever's missing from the fridge when they shut the door, that's what they get charged for. So we'll get a lot of interest in these. But yeah, that's why we started this, really to help egg producers make more money out of their seconds, and that's what we are really going to try and continue to do, help more farmers maximise their profits. We could make money off payment terminals. There's other ways we could be doing things. We've never bothered. We're just all about getting good, solid machines out there and doing the job. So yeah, if anybody needs us, that's our details there. The website's there, email address is there, or just give me a call direct. No problem.
That's great, Stuart. Thanks very much. As Stuart's shown his contact details there, but I'll drop an email to everybody that registered for the meeting with those details, just in case you missed them.
Thank you very much.
Juliana, if you've got any links as well, we're going to include those within the email tomorrow. So without further ado, hand over to Juliana. And I think I've just shared the screen there. I think if you can all see that. Yep, And if Juliana, I'll just ask you to come off mute. And you should be able
There we
to
go.
drive.
I think you can hear me now. Thank you very much for having me here today. My name is Juliana Texera. I am a food safety officer with the Highland Council. I've worked in public health now for 18 years since I've been in Scotland, both as a vet and as a food safety officer. I really do enjoy food safety, so I've had to slice down my slides, and these will go out to everybody tomorrow, and the links are incorporated in the PD PowerPoint, that's the word. So I think this is working. Are you seeing my front screen? How do I change this?
Are you able just to hit enter, Juliana, to take you to the next slide?
Okay, bear with me.
Yeah, no
Sorry.
problem.
Can you still see my screen?
Yeah, we see farm gate sales of food.
So up here in the north, we still have very small holdings that are selling and tend to be farm gate sales. A lot of them are still working on the honesty box. We don't have much in terms of vending machines up here at all. But coming to it from the point of view of environmental health and food safety, no, it's not going to the next one. Ah, there we go. What do you need to do to get started? First of all, register as a food business with the local authority and get in touch with your local environmental health officer, because they will give you information that is very specific to the products that you're wanting to sell and what you are actually producing. And also go and have a look at Food Standards Scotland. There's a wealth of information over there that will tell you what you need to do and how you need to do it. Registration as a food business is completely free. There's no cost involved, and we are there to help you comply with the regulations and produce a safe product. Okay. Is it changing to the next one? There is an awful lot of food law behind producing safe food. Basically, it's there just to make sure that you don't put anything into food or remove anything from food that makes it damaging to people's health, that it is of the nature and quality and substance expected, which means you're not selling lamb for mutton, kind of, and also to ensure that the adequate information is provided to the consumer in order that they can make a safe food choice. And the next slide, sorry. There are 116 pages of legislation in the Scottish Guide for Producing Safe Food, which will absolutely bore you to death. The main items of legislation are the ones that I have here on this page, which has disappeared, which is not helpful.
Oh, bear with me. Sorry.
So the regulations 852 apply to the general walls, floors, ceilings, structure kind of. Is
that it back?
Yeah, it looks like it's back, but it's given me the. It's not giving me the full screen.
Catherine, it's not on slideshow.
I don't think I can change that. Yeah. Okay.
Is that better?
That's it now.
Brilliant. Okay. So 852 is the basic structure, food handling processes and procedures, temperature control. 853 will apply more to foods of animal origin. So that will apply to your milks, your eggs, your cheeses, your meats, meat products, fish, honey. And then you have your food information to the consumer, which will mainly be regulated by the FIC regulation, which is 1169. So this is a summary of what I was just speaking through. 852 refers mainly to the general requirements for the safe production of food, feed, and the food hygiene requirements. Go back to the back of the legislation and look at Annex 1 and Annex 2. If you're producing and selling potatoes, then it will, things are jumping. It will refer mainly to food, primary produce food, including a bit about eggs, and Annex 2 will refer more to composite foods like your meat, your packages of meat, your milk, and baking foods that you've cooked or prepared or in any way handled. So Annex 2 will refer to that. So again, this is a division of what 853 refers to mainly. So there will be specific, it applies usually to approved premises. Approved premises are usually your big abattoirs, cutting plants, etc. As a small business, you won't be in approved premises in all likelihood. However, you will probably need to comply with parts of 853 in terms of the way you produce and handle foods of animal origin. And then there's the food information to customers, which is quite big right now because there have been significant changes in terms of food that you produce and prepare yourself. I don't know if everybody's aware of Natasha's law that's come into force at the beginning of October. A young lady was unfortunate to buy a sandwich that had hidden allergens in it. The sandwich was made by the shop that she bought it in and so did not require labeling. Unfortunately, sesame seed was ground into the flour for flavoring of the bread, and she had an anaphylactic reaction to the sesame in the bread whilst on an aeroplane, and unfortunately passed away. What that means for everybody, including especially gate end sales, is that if you are selling pre-packed food, and we're not talking about veggies, we're talking about anything that's a little bit more complicated, meat products that have seasoning, baking, pies, any more complicated food other than your primary production, you will have to have a label that identifies every ingredient in that food and that names the food. Oops, is it not going to the next one? It does not seem to be wanting to go to the next slide. So yes, there you go. Yeah. So what that label will need to show is the name of the food, any and all ingredients, including the ingredients of composite ingredients. For example, if you put digestive biscuits into a cheesecake that you've made with your with cheese or cream that you've produced, you need to put in the ingredients of the digestive biscuit as well. Here is a sample of a label, so you can see the allergens, 14 allergens that are required to be identified according to the current legislation are in bold, and in any composite ingredients have a bracket to identify specific ingredients in them. For example, the dough around the bread there has various ingredients in brackets. Okay. With regard to meat and meat products, there's quite a lot of legislation covering that as well. But the main one probably for farming is actually beef labeling. And here I would strongly advise you to get some advice from your local environmental health officer. There is compulsory labelling requirements that apply to farmers and farm shops and farm sales for the selling of beef. This compulsory beef labelling has to have this information that's on the slide, so a code so that you can trace it back to an individual animal or group of animals from where the beef came. For a smaller farm, it will probably be back to an individual animal, where it was born, where it was raised, or its origin if both are the same. If you bought a calf from Northern Ireland and it ends up going to slaughter, you can't give it the origin of the UK, where it was slaughtered, where it was cut up, and if it's an animal that's under 12 months of age, it must be categorized into V or Z. V for veal is under 8 months old, and category Z is between 8 and 12 months of age. Other than that, category Z always has to be marketed as beef. Category V can be sold as veal. The veal market in the UK I don't think is very big. Certainly I don't see it for sale very often. Possibly caterers are more interested in veal. And you also need to be aware of various miscellaneous things that can catch you out, such as meat products. You can't define certain things as burgers. You have to have at least 62% meat in a burger, or 26% minimum for a pork sausage. There are also things called reserve descriptions, which will be things like your Scotch beef and say Orkney beef. Those you need to comply with other types of legislation in order to be able to apply the reserved descriptions. You also need to provide in any butchered meat that you are selling a complete label that includes all allergens, just like you do for other types of food. And of course, you need to keep on top of temperature control. There we go. With gate end sales, which is what we have mostly up here, you have to register as an egg producer if you're selling to the scale that these vending machines are selling. You can also do informal small sales to people who are just passing at the bottom of your gate. If you have up to 350 birds, you don't need to register as an egg producer. If you have less than 50 birds, you don't even have to tell anybody that you're doing it. However, it is encouraged that you register your flock with DEFRA and AFA between 50 and 350 birds of any kind. And yes, you can sell duck eggs, hen eggs, whatever kind of eggs you can think of. I don't think ostrich is doing very well in Scotland. This is the kind of setup that we still get mostly up in Caithness. Temperature control can be a problem, but yeah, try and keep track of the use by or best before dates, and for eggs that will be 28 days from the point of lay. It's a bit rushed through. I don't know if I didn't do much about milk. Milk is a whole nother kettle of fish, and pasteurization can be quite a can of worms. So again, if you're doing milk, talk to your environmental health officers and see what you can and you can't do. Thank you very much.
No, thank you, Juliana. That was really interesting.
I don't know. I felt it was really rushed. I had to cut off an awful lot of slides, and the blue links inside of the PowerPoint, they all link into the legislation. So click on them and have a read, and look up for, every time you find a piece of legislation, look up guidance on that legislation. It's much more digestible, and it will be much more practical to do.
Yeah, and you say, talk to your local council.
Yes,
you're there to help, not to help from the start, help from the idea stage.
Yeah.
That's great. Kat, have we got any questions come in?
Yep, we do indeed. I don't know if our speakers can come off a mute. Juliana, I think you're already off mute, so that's grand. Yeah, I'll just run through them in the order they've come in, guys. Now we'll try and get through them. I'm aware we have a finish at 8:30. So, Stuart, is there an option to rent as opposed to buying a vending machine? Got a producer here that only has, sorry, I've lost the chat again. Hold on. Bear with me. Only has produce to sell for a few months out of the year. Is renting an option?
For that size and that time scale, we build every machine bespoke to what customer needs. Now, I do have in the order book a few machines of a kind of general configuration, and we will be offering those for rent. Now, depending on the size of the machine, if it's easy to maneuver and such like, yes, is the answer to the question, but it's not as easy as saying, I want this machine, can I rent this exact one? There is some stipulation to it, and it would be rented directly from ourselves as well, not through another company. So there would be a conversation about where it is and a contract to sign as well. But yeah, it is possible.
It's doable. Okay, so as I say, Stuart's details are going to go out tomorrow with the rest of the information from tonight's call, folks. So that's been asked a few times about renting a machine. Stuart, continuing with your machines, electricity-wise, how hard are these machines on power?
Not hard at all. The chiller ones, obviously, it's like a chiller. I say to people, it's the same cost as running a household freezer. A bit more, especially in the summer, a bit less in the winter. They all just plug into a 240 volt 13 amp plug, same as your household plug, so there's no need for 3-phase or anything like that. The more basic roaster ones without the screens, we actually have a couple of these running on 12 volts, just 12 volt car batteries. And we're in the process of speaking to, it's a module manufacturer actually, about selling a complete unit which is housed in a module that's already built in with solar powers and battery backup. So hopefully Q2 next year, we'll be going to market with those to say, it'll be delivered in the back of a lorry, lift off your forklift, flick a switch, and away it goes. So that's where we're going. But no, the basic one's 12 volts. Everything else is just a normal 240 volt 13 amp plug.
Perfect. Okay. You touched on freezer lockers there earlier on, Stuart. What is the rough kind of timescales for them being available?
I would have had frozen lockers available now if it hadn't been for the manufacturing issues. The company that's going to build them for us in the UK said they will start them in January. Freezing the lockers can be quite expensive. That's why I've went down the road of looking at the smart, intelligent freezers, and they will definitely be going to market, I would say, if not the end of January, certainly end of February, March. Q1 for sure.
Q1. Okay, no worries. Callum, moving on to yourself. I'm just going through them in the order. I don't know, Kathleen and Callum, if you can see all the questions. Callum, where would you say the biggest growth has been seen? Is it rural or more urban? I take it that would be with, it's a bit generic, I'm afraid. I think that's with overall sales.
If it's specifically vending, it's probably a question for Stuart. Sorry to shove it on.
No, that's fine.
Would you say, Stuart, is it the vending machines tend to be in rural locations, or is it a combination of some urban as well?
What we found, begin with, is all kind of rural stuff. Farm gate sales, basically glorified honesty boxes. People want to go down that way. Especially through last year, sales in these machines went through the roof, mainly because I think people were using it as an excuse to get out of the house. If they want to travel 20 miles to go and buy some eggs and vegetables, that was within the guidelines and it was a day out. This year, bigger systems are going in closer to cities. People are actually putting them in retail units like we're doing today in Ashbourne. But I would probably say it's probably still more 70-30 rural locations for sure. Definitely.
Okay.
Well, what would you, sorry to butt in, just on a similar theme, what would your advice be, Stuart? And I know that some farmers choose to convert an old outbuilding on the farm. Some choose to build from scratch, like that whole experience aspect.
Yep.
What are the sort of benefits and drawbacks of both?
I always say depends on your brand, depends what you want to be portrayed as. If you're a little organic egg producer, you don't want an all singing, all dancing shop, because that goes away from what your brand's all about. We have them from 3-sided lean-tos, basically just a cover over them, and the cover's more for your customers, not for the machine. You know, you don't want no one buying from your machine when it's raining. So you have to have an experience for your customers, someplace for them to go and stand. The ones that are housed very well, have good parking, have a kind of through, like a drive-through almost, to drive up to the door, make them as easy to access. They're the ones that do super, super well. The one in Tain, John Gordon's machine, you need to drive about 3.5 miles off the road to go to it. But he's put a big car park in. His view's nice, so the car park faces the view, and he'll have people turn up with a flask, buy some eggs, sit there for 20 minutes, have a cup and disappear again. So yeah, it's all about how you tell the story, basically.
Okay. Just trying to crack on with these questions. Juliana, one for yourself, I think. If an individual is to take a lamb to the slaughterhouse and get it slaughtered and also butchered, can they collect the butchered carcass and sell it on to a friend, or would you need chilled van? Also, would you need labelling, etc., on a very small scale?
Yeah, the labelling only applies to foods that are pre-packed, and generally, if you're doing gate-in sales, those would be pre-packed. If you have an agreement with a friend that you're going to sell them a lamb, then no labelling is required. And it also depends on the type of butchering that you're doing. Are you going to be making, well, lamb burgers aren't really a thing, are they? Lamb sausage is a thing. Anything that you're adding ingredients to, you need to make whoever is buying it aware of any allergens it will contain.
Okay, thank you for that. Stuart, sorry, back to yourself. How good a Wi-Fi signal do your machines need for card payments? Is there a minimum?
No, for card payments, if it's just a card payment, even in the basic machine, they work off a 4G SIM card. And we'll give you one with the terminal. And it's what we class as a multi-network SIM. So whatever network works for your area, we can jump on that. The Locks machines, the software-based ones, they do need an internet connection, but like our own machine in the back of nowhere, we just went on to, Amazon, advertising Amazon, and bought a 4G router. I think it was £80, and we get £3 a month for a 1 gig data-only SIM card that goes in the back of it, and the machines work fine for that. That works the vending web, the card payment systems, everything, no problem. Okay,
do the actual machines, I'm assuming the answer to this is no, do the actual vending machines need planning permission?
Planning's a good one. I used to think it depended where you lived, and now I actually think it depends who you get on the phone. I've had people, in exactly the same area, 10 miles apart, make the phone call to say, I'm putting it in a shipping container, it's not a fixed structure, we're not running water or anything to it, which should mean no planning's needed. One person said, no planning's needed. Got someone else on the phone and they said, oh no, you have to do a full planning application. They got it, they had to go through the planning application. So it's very much to do with where you are. And usually the things I've learned over the last few years is if you're not putting a new driveway in or a new access off a road, if it's not a fixed structure, you're not on top of any gas lines, you should be absolutely fine. But we've not had anybody refused it.
Okay. Callum, possibly one for yourself. Do you know if there's any grants available at all for vending machines?
It's a question that always comes up, is grants. At the moment, the short answer is no. There was the Food Processing Cooperation Marketing Grant, although I had an inquiry specifically around farm vending. Could they use the grant for that? And the answer was no. So unfortunately, where we currently are, where the government is, we're still in a sort of COVID world. A lot of public funding, quite rightly so, is being pushed towards the pandemic effort. Saying that, I have heard positive noises that there will be some sort of funding coming forward in the future, probably in April with the start of the new financial year. But unfortunately, no one really knows how much and what the criteria is going to be, unfortunately. So that's a long-winded way to say there's no funding, but there might be in future.
Yeah. Okay. Conscious of the time now, folks. Juliana, just possibly one last question, I think. Yeah. Is there different requirements and rules and regulations if you were going to be doing home delivery?
If the order is placed by the customer and you are preparing the order for that customer, the labelling isn't required. You would still need to register as a food business, but it would certainly be easier in terms of labelling because in principle they would be advising you of any allergies that they had, and you would prepare their box in accordance with whatever they've told you.
Okay,
Does that make
thank you.
sense?
Yeah. So, sorry, just one real final last question, and then we've covered all the questions that come in via the chat. Stuart or Callum, is there any examples of communities or shared vending machines with different local producers getting together?
Yeah, one that I did last year up this neck of the woods was just south of Elgin, Eckley's Farm Shop. They had some of their goat meat actually, but what they did, their business model was we're going to buy a machine and rent the locker space. So they have a central store, and I'm guessing, I think there's 4 or 5 different people involved, and they bring their produce to Eckley's, and Eckley charge them per locker per week, and they also charge them a fee for every time they fill the locker. So if the locker sells out at 10 o'clock on a Tuesday and they go and fill it at 10:30, there's a set fee for them looking after that. And because of the vending web software that we have, everything's detailed in there. So at the end of the weekday, whatever, whenever Julie Cummings is that looks after it, whenever Julie does it, she just looks in the vending web and says, they'll do this, and it's all transparent. All the producers can see it. So that's their business model. They set up to say this machine will be paid in 2 years by renting lockers out at this price, and then everybody benefits from there. So that's the closest one to us anyway.
Perfect. Folks, I think if anyone is interested in vending, obviously Stuart's your man to speak to, there's no doubt. What I'm going to do is hand you back to Kathleen now. We've gone through most of the questions now on the chat, Kathleen, so it's probably time to wrap up. So I'll just hand back to yourself.
Yep, thanks, Kat. Thanks for all your questions. I think there's really good ones, some really good ones there. Just a plug, as Callum said, next week, that's Wednesday the 1st of December, last month of the year, we're going to talk about selling locally and looking at how to use social media to attract your customers and get your story out there. As with all our meetings, if you've been to one before, there'll be a email coming in the next sort of couple of days asking to complete a feedback form. So I would encourage you to do so, and if you do, you are put forward into a prize draw, and it's a £50 voucher. So it's coming up to Christmas and they're always handy at this time of year. Again, I'd just like to say thank you to everybody for coming on the call this evening. I hope you've learned something new, and I've certainly learned a lot about vending machines and the rules and regulations about selling food direct to the public. A big thank you to Stuart, Callum and Juliana for taking their time out this evening, not only this evening, but obviously in preparation of their presentations and just thinking about this evening. I hope you've all had a good evening, and without further ado, just like to say good night.